Good evening, America. Hey, coming to you live, episode 35, Contra-Dictions. We got a good show tonight, man. We're going to talk Kyle Rittenhouse, Jacob Blake, and maybe a few other topics. But the hot topic tonight, Rittenhouse, Blake. Got my boys with me. We got Kenny. There he is.
What's up? What's going on, fellas?
And we got my boy Glennon.
What's up? What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Back from a fantastic weekend. Ready to get into this conversation, man. Let's go ahead and jump on in.
All right, so why don't you start, Kenny? I know you got a lot of stuff to talk about, and then we'll get Glennon's opinion and facts here afterwards. What do you say?
So the first thing I wanted to point out was just that we have, so many instances where I just wish that the media needs to be more honest. Time and time again, whether it was the Breonna Taylor case, whether it was the Jacob Blake case, whether it was the George Floyd case, over and over again, the media is pushing lies. Let's just think about this for a second. The George Floyd case, the first things that they said was that, or we could even go to Ahmaud Arbery. The first thing they said was he was just jogging around the community, right? Then we find out that's a lie. Then George Floyd, what did they tell us? He wasn't resisting arrest. And then we find out that he was. Then they say, Breonna Taylor, oh, she was just an EMT. It wasn't even meant to be for her. But it was. Jacob Blake, oh, he was breaking up a fight between two women. But he wasn't. Even the person that called the police from the house, his ex's mom, she was the one that called the police and said that she had stolen her daughter's keys and that they were causing fights and ruckus in the yard. So when you begin stories out with these false narratives time and time again, it incites things. And for people that believe that they're disenfranchised and have been historically disenfranchised, those situations, people go, oh, well, their immediate response is it doesn't happen to white people. But we know who Jacob Blake is, but we don't know who Ariel Romaine is. Ariel Roman, he was killed by two black police officers running up an escalator away from them after they had tackled him and he was resisting arrest. He wasn't reaching for anything. He was running up the stairs and got shot and killed. There's no outrage. Zero. Duncan Lemp from Montgomery County, Maryland, was killed, him and his girlfriend, in the house. The police did a warrant and shot through the door and killed him. Nothing. Nobody fired. You don't hear anything about it. George Floyd, we've already discussed. Tony Timpa was held down longer. I'm not saying one is worse than the other. What I am saying is when you're only showing the one side and then people go, yeah, but this didn't happen to y'all. And it's like, actually, it is happening. It's happening to everybody. So if we want to have a discuss about police brutality, okay, but we're feeding a narrative that is just not true. And they know they're feeding false narratives because every storyline is incendiary. And then it's so bad that eventually we come back and then they say, well, even if that happens, they said with Jacob Blake, oh, he didn't have a weapon in the car, but he did have a weapon in the car. Then they say he had a knife, but outside of that, he was unarmed. What? And then they go, well, it doesn't matter if he had that or not. It's like, well, if it didn't matter, then why didn't you put it in the story at first? Why are you lying to us? And then we call you on the lies saying none of that stuff matters. It does matter because once it gets into your head that way, then it changes the way that you look at things. And so what do you think, Glenn?
Well, you gave us a lot there, man. You gave us a lot to go off of. So that's cool. So I'm going to kind of just back up a little bit to the beginning because on the surface, I agree with Kenny. False narratives are going to lead to false positives, if you will, or if you were a doctor, you would call it a false positive. And that's what happens when you have false narratives. In the case, because you brought up a few things, and you brought up Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and all those cases, and I agree. And then you also brought up some cases where they weren't really publicized at all, and people are asking where's the outrage, and the fact that they weren't publicized, I think is where the real question needs to lie. Why were they not publicized? Because I believe that had they been publicized, the level of outrage would be the same. I choose to believe that most of humanity if there is a virtuous side, is on the side of good and doesn't want to see another human being, no matter what the color of their skin is or any of that sort of thing. They don't want to see another human be brutalized, especially by police and those that are sworn to protect and serve. But in the case of Ahmaud Arbery, I know Kenny had just brought up that, it was painted like he was just jogging through the neighborhood, found out he wasn't. I don't really agree with that. Several witnesses have gone on to say, including the owner of that vacant house, that people go through that house all the time. And several witnesses actually said that they saw Ahmaud Arbery oftentimes stopping to have a drink of water or something and getting some shade in that house. Do we know if that's if that's true? Do we know if he was really trying to case it at 1 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon to try to steal wood? That's up for speculation, but I don't agree. I don't think that he was like casing a place. But the general synopsis of the conversation, we're talking about Kyle Rittenhouse. We're talking about false narratives, and I think what Kenny was really getting at was the fact that when you read a lot of these articles in the news, in the media, online, they're often painted like white militiamen, kills unarmed protesters, right? And so they couldn't use the black narrative in this. And me and Kenny kind of laughed about it before the show. And thank God that Mr. Rittenhouse didn't shoot the black guy. I don't know if everybody saw the picture of the black guy that had actually took a leap over Kyle Rittenhouse and tried to I guess kick him in the face, like jump over him and kick him in the face at the same time. Kyle Rittenhouse had actually shot twice and they just happened to miss. And I'm glad that they did, because all the victims, not that it matters if they're black or white, but we all know that if he would have shot that black guy, it would have been painted like angry white militia Trump supporter, because it's now come out that he's a Trump supporter. They would have ran with it. They would have had a field day, and that just wasn't the case. Kenny went through a lot, and really my main preface is that as of right now, he's being charged with quite a few things. He's just to kind of summarize it, he's got 2 murder charges, and then he has 2 endangering another human with a deadly weapon charge. All fairly serious charges. My question at this point is, are they going to stick? Are the charges going to stick? And we kind of talked about it a little bit.
Lawyer or something, right?
You said they have what now?
Doesn't he have like some powerhouse like law firm backing him or something like that? That's what I heard.
Yeah, but see, I don't really think that matters in this case. I have here.
That could be true too.
Well, I mean, I have here, and my question is, I'm about to read you just a quick little. I'm going to go over the first count. I'm just going to go over count 1, which is first-degree reckless homicide, use of a dangerous weapon against the victim, Joseph Rosenbaum. That was the bald head guy. He was the antagonist. And I want to read this. This is the prosecutor's statement, right? And it says, quote, "The above named defendant," which we all know, Kyle Rittenhouse, "on or about Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, in the city of Kenosha County, Wisconsin, did recklessly cause the death of Joseph Rosenbaum under circumstances which show utter disregard for human life, contrary to section, blah, 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 and further invoking of the provisions of section blah, 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 because the defendant committed this offense while using a dangerous weapon. The maximum term of imprisonment for the felony may be increased by not more than 5 years." They also go on to say that, let's see here. Basically, long story short, they're trying to prosecute Rittenhouse, but the prosecutors actually wrote the report. They're giving him a slam dunk for self-defense. I mean, they're admitting in the report that Joseph Rosenbaum, chased him. That actually Joseph Rosenbaum tried to grab the gun several times. They quoted, if you actually watch the video, you can hear a bunch of people screaming, "He just shot somebody, get him, kick his ass." These are literal quotes: "Kick his ass, get him."
His ass was the direct
get his ass was one of them, yeah. And so he's actually running away from what he thinks is a crowd of people that are trying to envelop him in this situation, this hostile crowd that's trying to envelop him. And so there's some questions here. Obviously, I don't think any of these charges are going to stick. I personally think that it's self-defense. And if you actually look at the way that the law is written for Kenosha County, the law is written, it's so one-sided that there's really no. I mean, he's gonna get the self-defense. I mean, they were attacking him. They were yelling, "Get him!" There's video footage. There's 3 videos.
Now, I will tell you this: one of the things that's interesting is they do not have a stand your ground law there. So
Right.
it was actually key that in both situations he was running away, because if he wouldn't have ran away, then they would have the case. But he was running away. I found that. Look, I'm not going to, my job is not to find out whether or not I would want this guy to date my daughter or not, right? He's 17. I got a 17-year-old. My job is just simply to say whether something, and like every other case, I put myself in both positions. And I actually, there's a part of me that feels for the 3 guys, or for the 2 guys that got shot on the second shooting. The one guy, he was inciting stuff, been pretty violent pretty much the whole time. He threw, it looked like to me, I thought it was a Molotov cocktail, which I always say that wrong, but I think it was a bag with a bottle in it.
It was a plastic bag, and we don't actually know what was in it. Still,
something was in it,
heavy.
I was actually going to bring a plastic bag and throw it and go, that's how you know it's not just a plastic bag. But he chased him. What was weird is we don't know who, but somebody fired a shot before he gets there. And you can tell it's a different sound than the sound of the gun that Kyle shoots, because the Kyle shot comes afterwards and shoots him, bang, bang, bang. And then he kind of loops back around to look at him and then starts running away. I wish, and I've even heard it on the right, he was calling the police. He did not call the police. To the best of the reports that I've read, he called a friend of his to tell him, basically, we got to get the fuck out of here. Like,
he was heard by McGinnis, who is a journalist.
I just killed somebody.
To say, I just killed somebody. Yep. Yeah, he's a reporter from the Daily Beast. Very credible witness. He was standing right there. He was actually in the line of fire when Joseph Rosenbaum was killed.
He wasn't in the line of fire based on the angle, but
based on the angle. I mean, he could have potentially been hit, but
he was certainly close enough to have been shot. I mean, he was actually in between them before the guy ran him down.
Right.
And the thing is after that one, which according to that guy from Daily Beast, he grabbed the gun. So once he grabbed the gun and tried to yank, that's when he started letting off rounds. And so when he shot him there, he drops. He loops around. Let me think if I'm him now. All of a sudden, shoot, I'm trying to get the heck out of there, because there's hundreds of people, which goes back to this whole, we defund the police, this type of thing. If we don't do the other parts of it, there needs to be times where these people need to be coming in. I mean, this is just lawlessness. And so that guy now has no safety for himself. Even though he was protecting himself, he's got to take off running. People obviously yelling, hey, he shot somebody. And then they say, get him, get that mother. And so he's running down the street. And because this fat dude's unathletic and has 2 left feet. And actually, to be fair, somebody tried to swing at him, and he dodged them. And after about 2 steps, I don't know what he hit.
No, he connected the guy. There was a guy in a white t-shirt that actually swung on him. Yeah, he tried to dodge. Yeah, he tried to dodge it, and then you actually see the guy connected, and Rittenhouse's hat came off. You can see Rittenhouse's hat come off.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that came off. Yeah, so I didn't want to. I try to be as accurate as I can on the show. So it looked like he could have or he could not have. His head definitely went this way, and then after that, about 2 steps later, is when he starts to stumble, and the guy with the skateboard first comes by. And then after he falls, the guy with the skateboard actually kind of loops around and then comes back. And the black dude with the white pants tries to kind of curb stomp him. And right at the same time, the dude with the skateboard comes over and he shoots the first. I think he's shooting at the guy that jumped on him. He just misses him. And then the next shot, center mass. And there went the skateboarder dude. Not to laugh at him, because I do feel there's a part of me that feels bad for them from this standpoint. If I'm in an area and somebody says, hey, that person just killed somebody, and I believe that's true, then I probably would try to detain that person in some manner. I'm not going to justify trying to curb stomp them, and I'm not going to justify trying to hit him with a skateboard. So that's where the guy loses me at when he swung the skateboard at him and tried to grab the gun. Boom, he gets shot. The other guy, the third guy comes in. He's got a gun. He's got a Glock in his hand. First of all, learn how to use a Glock.
Yeah, I mean, he ran towards him without shooting it at all.
She shot around in the air. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell are you shooting in the air for?
And that's what I think those prior shots were when you heard it, because you could hear bang, bang. Like,
well, the guy with the handgun actually had shot first. He shot the first shot.
Oh, that was him?
Yeah, and you see, and that's why I'm like,
Kenny,
man, that
might be the sound you're referring to on the video. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the echoes and things, we've talked about it on the show too. But you can see he fired that first shot in the air. Rittenhouse sees it, and then Rittenhouse fires like 4 more shots, or the witness McGinnis said he thinks it was 6 shots. He fires like 6 more shots in succession. And that's when I think 4 of them hit Rosenbaum, Jason Rosenbaum. And then from there, he tries to get up and start running, and he's Joseph. And then from there, he gets up and starts running down the street. And that's when we see the second video take place, where the one guy runs up, tries to punch him. He connects to the back of the head, knocks his hat off. And then Rittenhouse takes 2 more steps forward, falls.
Some of the comments I heard online trying to discredit Rittenhouse was like, hey, at 17 in Kenosha, you need an adult supervision.
So there's another thing about that.
Apparently,
there's a loophole.
Like 10 minutes from Kenosha, but they made it seem like he was from a whole nother state.
Well, what's funny is the guy Gage actually drove farther than Rittenhouse did to get to the place.
That's what I'm saying. Apparently, he had a job as like a lifeguard in Kenosha. I mean, I don't know.
He went there a lot from what I read. Now, again, hey, he was a self-proclaimed person in a militia. Look, militia might have a negative connotation, but it's in our Constitution, so I don't think it does.
I mean, that's how we won the Revolutionary War, if you haven't known history.
So I don't have – what bothered me is the first tweet that came out when the story broke was that it was a white supremacist, that had killed people in Kenosha. And there's 0 evidence of that. And sadly enough to say, just what Glenn said when he first came on, when we all popped up here, is that, man, if he would have shot the black guy, and they're still trying to frame it like, well, these white guys were in this Black Lives Matter thing, so they're kind of like shooting at black people-ish. And it's like, well, no, but if he would have shot that guy and killed him, even though the guy was trying to curb stomp him, we would just say another innocent man died. I mean, I hate to say it, but thank goodness these 3 guys were all white. I mean,
it's kind of sad. And the real question here is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, Kenny, they did paint Rittenhouse out to be like he was part of a white supremacist militia group. He is a self-proclaimed militiaman. And he's also a Trump supporter. It's avid proof of that.
He was at his rally. He is.
He's at his rallies. He's got MAGA hats and stuff. I guess the real question is, why would this 17-year-old
little minor detail? Go ahead. I was just gonna say little minor detail. I read a lot. I didn't see anything with a MAGA hat. I know he was a Blue Lives Matter person, and I know he was a Trump supporter, but I just didn't see anything MAGA just for accuracy's sake on my end.
And at this point, I mean, people can Photoshop things. I came across a picture of him with a MAGA hat, but I do know for a fact that he's a Trump supporter. I know he's a self-proclaimed militiaman. He wrote about it on his social media.
And then, like you were just getting ready to say to everyone, Glenn, what was a 17-year-old doing there with an assault rifle?
Well, not only that, but why would a 17-year-old feel compelled to have to protect the police and show up with a rifle? And there is a little bit of a loophole. Kenny touched on it, because you have to be 18 to have a firearm, and there's certain instances. So this loophole might not stick, but unless it's a rifle or a long barrel firearm or something like that.
He didn't take the weapon from where he was at. And this might be a lawyer trick, so I'm not saying that this is true, but this is what his lawyer's saying, is that one of his buddies there gave him the weapon. Since one of his buddies there gave him the weapon, and
he didn't cross state lines.
Right. As long as he didn't cross state lines with it at 17, then he's good. And they're saying that didn't apply because he came there and got the weapon once he was there. So, and there's a long rifle or shotguns he's allowed to carry in the state. So he's not going to get charged with that either, I don't believe.
I mean, that's the weakest of all of the charges. It's the lesser of the charges, and it's kind of like the least sexy of the charges, if you will. It's the most it's unappealing. There's not a lot there. If I were his attorney, I would be least worried about that one. I mean, I would be most worried about the two homicide charges that he has. And it's funny because, like, again, the way that the prosecutors pretty much wrote this to where I can't. It's hard for me to believe that they're trying to prosecute this kid. Like, you really wrote up. It corroborates.
The problem is you have a key eyewitness that was pretty outspoken immediately.
Immediately, yeah, McGinnis, and hats off to him because he was pretty.
In the actual police report, itself, he's quoted for like 9 paragraphs because I did read the actual police report. So he goes through everything. I mean, he goes through everything beforehand, what he saw, what he heard the dude say on the phone, how many shots he thought he heard, what he tried to do.
He literally went through everything. I'm gonna read you one more quick little quote from the prosecutor's statement, and in regards to McGinnis, I'm trying to blow it up. It's kind of small. It says McGinnis described the point where the defendant had reached the car. McGinnis described that the defendant had the gun in a low ready position, meaning that he had the gun raised but pointed downward. The butt of the gun would have been at an angle towards the shoulder. McGinnis stated that the defendant brought the gun up. McGinnis stated that he stepped back and he thinks the defendant fired 3 shots in rapid succession. McGinnis said when the first round went off, he thought it hit the pavement. McGinnis felt something on his leg, and his first thought was him wondering if he was hit. McGinnis then looked up to realize that most people in the protest were actually chasing, and from what he attests to, were trying to do bodily harm to Kyle Rittenhouse. This is the prosecutor's statement. Like they're I mean, self-defense. I mean, like, what are they trying to prosecute? And look, I get it. Like, hey, you're like, this is going to be the year. Honestly, it's like they wrote it up to the point where he shouldn't even have been charged. I mean, look, the guy was defending himself. And I'll be honest. I don't like this Rittenhouse kid. I think deep down on the surface, I think he's a punk kid that showed up and probably has access to a gun or owns a gun. And I think he wants to be, a part of a militia. And maybe we just don't know. We can't say. Here's
the thing. I would have given him the benefit of the doubt because I saw him cleaning some stuff off the walls. I saw him, he was rendering aid to other people. So, for people that if you busted the window and cut your arm, he would help you, even if you were on the other side. So that side of me wants to give him credit. But then I also saw a video that I would say surely does look like him, and he's punching a girl. This girl was beating up his girlfriend, it looked like, or some girl that he was with, and he takes a couple, he looks like an idiot. And then actually these dudes videoing it actually got out of the car, came over and put a little ass whooping on him. So maybe he learned his lesson. I don't want to judge people by their past, but at the same time, I do, just like I do in the other cases, I can't say that if I know that, then that doesn't speak to him trying to be always involved. Just like the white dude that had the shirt around his head, was saying, shoot me, N-word, shoot me, N-word, and then he ends up getting shot. It's hard for me to feel that bad because you're that dude.
Right.
We all know that dude.
You're that dude that the entire country is protesting against right now. You're the asshole that is making America look bad, and then you get shot, and we're supposed to feel some type of way.
Right. And
before we move on to the next subject, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Is he guilty? Our audience wants to know. Do you think he's guilty, or
not only is he not guilty? First of all, the only reason he's charged with that is because they have a liberal governor who's up against the wall right now, spread eagle, taking it like a bicycle, sitting on a bicycle with no seat. Okay, he is just getting it right now, and so I'm sure his state's attorney, they're gassed up and they want to show the people, hey, look what we did. So it kind of calms people down. It's going to backfire because he's going to get off. It's the same argument that I made when, the Ahmaud Arbery case. To me, I always say, if you want to get somebody and you feel like there's an injustice done, sometimes you don't get to get the whole cake. You got to just take a piece. So if you charge somebody, you charge them guys that shot him with manslaughter, I think it's a closed deal. You got it. You start going for first degree, then you got to prove somebody's got motive. And this one, I think they'd have been swinging for the fences with a misdemeanor charge. I mean, so there's no way if this sticks, there will be outrage. And I mean outrage from anyone that believes in the Constitution, anyone that believes in self-defense, the Second Amendment. I mean, that would be a huge blow. And I mean, there's no way you're going to get a jury to say that guy's guilty. With those images, no way.
There's just way too many video that's out there. Have to agree with Kenny, unfortunately, because I really there's a part of me that doesn't like this Rittenhouse kid. I don't
like him either.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. But I think that one of the real questions, in my opinion, is aside from the incident, you have a lot of people are up in arms about the fact that police officers were, handing water bottles out to the militia and things like that. But, they weren't really showing any love to the protesters. And I get it. The protesters were there to protest the police, if you will, or to protest the incident. But at the end of the day, police officers are still supposed to be professionals. They're actually supposed to remain neutral.
Well, actually, so just to be clear on something, because people were saying that, and I believe based on the videos I watched, that's a total myth. And I'll tell you why. Because there was actually different militia groups there for different things. So there was one that was it was okay to break things as long as you didn't. I'm trying to think of how they said, as long as you didn't kill anybody or anything. Then there was another group that was protecting the buildings. Then there was one that was protecting all kinds of buildings. One was only government buildings. And so that's why in that one video with the dude when he still had his shirt on and the bald head, when he's like, shoot me, you'll see a black dude with a baseball bat and a gun. And he's kind of separating them and being like, look, we're all going to be here and be allowed. So it's very difficult to decipher who was the who, you know what I mean? And so if they came over, I don't think they were going, no, you can't have any water. I mean, clearly they're not going to throw you a water while you're bashing a window open. But if you came over and looked like a normal Joe and you came to get a bottle of water, there's no doubt they would have given it, because I didn't know who any of those people were. I mean, if you gave me a board and were circle the good guys, I'd be like, I don't know. What? Nobody should have been there. They were all over curfew. I don't even know why that's a stupid ass idea to have the police there handing out water. And then, and I want to clarify this point, because
they weren't enforcing the curfew, so that's why they were allowing them to be there. It was technically enacted, but they weren't enforcing it, obviously.
And again,
nobody was arrested for being out after curfew.
I'm not for that. I'm also not for pulling all your police away. So I don't think that's a good idea to do at the same time. And I think that people are missing this point because I do want to address this issue. They're like, oh, why did he not get shot? Well, first of all, the police are in these big ass Humvee type
armored vehicles,
right? And he comes walking like this with his gun right here. Well, lots of people got guns. He ain't the only person there with a gun. I mean, I saw plenty. So he's walking like this. So of course he's showing them, hey, here's my hands. I'm no threat. So he kind of just walks right by him. It kind of reminds me of the old YouTube video where the people go in to rob the bank and the police all pull up. And then the guy in the car that just robbed the bank pulls out, and they don't even notice it's his car. And it kind of reminded me of that, because he walks by, and then there is one guy that says, hey, he's the guy that killed him. But he says it one time. And then after that, everybody else is yelling, get down there, somebody's been shot. And you can hear on the mic, on the cop's mic thing, somebody's been shot. And so they start going down there. Well, this led me to a conversation that I had, and I'll keep this real quick, but this girl tells me, oh, well, how come when, this guy, Jacob Blake gets into a situation, he gets shot, but this guy shoots up a school and he walks out? Because those guys didn't shoot at the police. Just like the DC sniper, them dudes were like, once they got caught, like, hey, you got me, dog. Just like Kenneth Walker, when the police came in, hey. And you know what? They didn't get shot. So it's not always just see black, shoot black. And that's the thing, that the narrative is driven. And it's not, going back to what you said earlier, Glenn, it's not that I don't disagree with you that normal society, whether it's a white person or a black person, that's actually my point, is that whoever it is, their life certainly matters. And it would affect us emotionally both. But when you only see one, then it's easier to stoke a fire that way, because then you assume that that's true, unless you got people that, like me, that are just skeptics. But
contrarians. I'd say Kenny's a bit of a contrarian.
well, since you brought it up, Kenny, let's go right into that next, man. Let's talk about Blake. Let's talk about his case.
Yeah. So, and really quick before you jump off, Kenny, because it does kind of segue. We talked about the two girls, with Rittenhouse, and so in terms of Jacob Blake, he was there. Now, obviously, we all know that he had that his ex had a restraining order, or his baby mom had a restraining order against him. Actually, now, and we don't know this to be true, but according to Jacob Blake's attorney, he was actually there to resolve a civil matter or a domestic matter. He was actually to resolve a domestic matter. So enough detail hasn't come out on that to know if he was there to resolve one or start one.
No,
I just can't imagine this guy.
To me, there's clearly enough evidence that's clearly made up by Crump, and Crump made that up. He got that from when the first media got there. They asked his fiance. That was their source. And this is the kind of stuff that bothers me about the media. You source a fiance. That's a little misleading. When I actually have a video that I could show right now, you guys can decide if you want to watch it or not, where the girls in the house are being like, that fat bitch, talking about his fiance. That's the one who was in the fight because he brought her to a place he should have been. Then he came in her house, grabbed her keys, and that's what the phone call was. So that's the call. When I listened to the whole police call today, on the 911 call, I believe it's her mother on the phone. She doesn't identify herself. She says exactly who it is.
And this is the ex-girlfriend, right?
Yes, this is baby's mama.
The baby mother, yeah.
Yeah, yep. Baby mama. So she calls. So there's no like, hey, there's a fight out front. You know what I mean? No. She says, hey, this dude came in our house. He grabbed the keys out my daughter's hand. Y'all need to come here. He's got a warrant out for his arrest, blah, blah. So she's saying all this. The police dispatcher, then you get to hear her relay it to them. She tells them he has an open warrant. So just like I had assumed, when these guys get there, they already know. And actually, people say, oh, it happened a minute after they got there. That's not true.
No, it's not true.
Once they were on their way there, she actually calls backup for them because of the warrant. Because when it's a high, it's called a more dangerous or whatever, level 1, whatever, they end up sending a backup car. That lady didn't have a partner, though. So she's the blonde chick. If you look, not to offend any blonde chicks if that's offensive to somebody, but a blonde police officer. And she is kind of behind the car. And you only see her in like the corner if you look closely. But when the fight broke out, she kind of just steps back. And then she didn't shoot her taser, but the other two did. So I just wanted to get that out there because that was the narrative. Oh, he was there to break up a fight. Of course.
Well, I don't think he was ever. I didn't hear he was there to break up a fight. I heard he showed up with his kids and his current girlfriend to take care of a domestic issue that they were going through in the courts.
According to his lawyer, this is the quote: he was breaking up a fight between two women. That's the quote.
Well, yeah, I mean, once the altercation kicked off,
yeah, that wasn't what was happening.
It's not to say that couldn't have happened.
Yeah, that could have happened. It couldn't have happened. But the actual intent, and we don't know. And the same thing goes for the police as well too. Because a lot of, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. Mm-hmm. Police officers have 4 non-lethal ways to deal with an adversary. They've got the taser, they've got mace. They've got the irregular combat skills, and then they've got the baton, right? So, just to play devil's advocate here, mm-hmm. They've got 4 non-lethal ways that they can deal with an individual. Blake is walking away from, not running, walking. He's mm-hmm. walking away, right? Yeah. Now, the police may have been aware that he could have potentially had something in the vehicle or not. We don't know that for a fact because at first I thought that it was dispatched that he was known to have a weapon in the front seat. That's not the case. When, like you said, when the mother had called, she's relaying information. She did say that he may have a weapon, but she didn't say that he's known to have something in the front seat or anything like that. So the police didn't know that. And just to play devil's advocate, because again, I talked about it in the last show. It's when you for one, at the time he was shot, there were 2 police officers there. They've got 4, so that's 8 non-lethal ways.
There was 3 officers there.
But there were 2 of them that were like in close proximity. Right. One of them was kind of like off, like not really in the scene. So the 2 officers, I mean, it's 2 of them. He's walking away. My question is, each officer having 4 non-lethal ways to deal with a potential criminal, is shooting him warranted, and why? And I have one other question, because I think there's a disregard for life on both parts. I think there's a disregard for life in terms of those kids, in terms of Jacob Blake walking toward the kids. I think it's a shitty move. But I also think that there's a disregard for life because at the end of the day, police are trained and they're professionals, and they've decided to shoot off those rounds with kids being less than 10 feet away from them. So I'm just playing devil's advocate here. You got 2 cops, 4 non-lethal ways to deal with an adversay, and yet he gets shot 7 times. Somebody please explain to me the logic.
I don't think the baton, you can use the baton when he has a weapon.
So, I'll go through a couple of these things.
Hey, that baton is no joke, by the way. If you got a baton and somebody else got a knife.
Hold on. First of all, I've seen
a baton can deal with that.
That we don't have. I mean, we're speculating because we don't have that he had all 4 of those non-lethal weapons on him.
But if you look under any code in terms of law enforcement, those are pretty standard. Now, if they didn't have it on them, I would almost go to say
I'm going to give you a lifeline in that of agreement in that I do have a problem that they didn't have cameras.
That's another big issue. It seems like there's a lot of things that they didn't have, and so I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Hold on, Glenn. Let me get to your point. So because I'll tell you this, I watched it again today. I'm still disturbed by it. I'm still not comfortable with it. The problem that I have is I go, okay, so how would I have done it if I had 4 on me? Okay, so there was 2, according to the police report that I read, 2 tasers were shot, which is weird because they only said 1 in the media, but on the police report it said 2 different tasers were shot.
Well, you can see 1 taser being shot in the video, like when they were kind of tussling.
Now that it's possible they shot the 1 and 1 didn't engage. I'm not sure. I just know it said 2 were shot. So it's possible. Now, sometimes you have up to, I think, 4. I have to ask somebody that shot a taser. I've never shot one. So I don't know if it's got 1 tase in it or 3, or I know some of them have multiple charges. So I'm not sure. I think it's certainly a valid question to ask that they should have to answer for in terms of what non-lethal things did they do. It sucks because I could make the argument that they should have shot him before that. I mean, that's the problem is you didn't shoot him when you were wrestling with him, because if you're wrestling with him, here's the truth of the matter. If you wrestle with a police officer, no, it doesn't mean you should get the death sentence. But yes, it means you have relinquished your right to determine whether or not you get shot or not. Because there are definitely cases where people have grabbed for the police officer's gun and shot the police officer. And there was kids in the front lawn. So I'm not sure what the right answer is. I wish he would have just complied. I don't like that they shot him. I would be more than happy to penalize them for a couple different things. One, the chief or whoever's in charge. I think those people should be in trouble for not having the body cams. Should have that. And then if they don't have access to those 4 things, again, it goes to the higher ups. Then if they had them and they didn't use them, then
it's on them.
That's on them. Now, I would be okay with them receiving charges based on that and then seeing their day in court. I'm just trying to think of if they didn't, then it's going to make it very hard for me, because I think the mistake was letting him get to the car door. I mean, whether they should have tackled him, whether they should have, these officers had actually dealt with him before, so they didn't know who he was. I'm not sure, because we don't get the camera long enough to know how long they try to de-escalate. I think people oversell de-escalation when you're going to make an arrest. I think de-escalating is wonderful when you're not going to arrest a person, try to de-escalate. I actually talked to a cop today, a prior police officer, and I'll withhold his name because he said he couldn't come on because he didn't want to be this to bring a story. But I did speak to somebody today, so you just have to take my word for it. This guy was a veteran on the police force.
I can vouch, guys. He was on the police force for 13 years.
Yeah,
so
he had opened up talking to somebody He pulled them over. Dude had a bunch of stolen stuff with him. He's like, look, dude, just give this stolen stuff back. Like, I get off in like 30 minutes and I'm out of here. And instead, the dude ends up pulling out a gun and shooting at him. So then he lets some back at him. And it's like, he wasn't trying to escalate anything. I mean, some people don't, I always believe in de-escalation. I just don't always believe de-escalation works. I think you should always try it. But there is going to be a point where you got to hold somebody accountable and you're going to have to tell them to put their hands behind their back. And even if you don't do that, if they think that, then they might respond that way. So not to get off on the tangent, I do agree with Glenn. I do think that if we find out those things are available, it's just, why have I not heard that? Why? And I look at when I'm trying to do the research for the show, I am looking up every single article, every single thing I can find. And it's like,
well, we never, and that's a valid point. Why is it that the average American doesn't know these things? And why is it that this information is essentially being suppressed? I mean, this should be common knowledge. Hey, a police officer has a gun, a taser, a baton.
Right, or that's the first question asked. Hey, what non-lethal methods did you guys try before you shot him in his back 7 times?
Yes.
This. What did you have available to you? That was all we had available to us. Okay. Or
then it's a conversation, because there's got to be some sort of, I don't want to say justification, but you got to give me a reason for whipping out that gun and licking off 7 shots. It's just not going to be swept under the table.
So the cops were informed that he had a sexual assault charge warrant out for his arrest, right?
Correct.
And who was the assault on? Was it his ex-girlfriend, his baby's mama?
No.
I thought it was.
Okay.
No, it was actually a minor. So they didn't say, they haven't publicized who it is. I think
they can't, obviously.
Minor. But that's
was she related? Was there a minor related?
Had to be. Yeah. Had to be related based on the type of charge, from what I read.
So she had to be related to the baby's mom or something like that.
Correct.
Because they said specifically that the baby's mom had a restraining order against him.
Right.
And they didn't really say what the incident was that caused that restraining order. But if it was something that had to do with the minor, then the minor either lives with the baby's mom or is on.
So I'm going to say something that no other Republican has said, or no other person that is on the right at all has said, and I'll say it. He is not a sexual assault convict. Okay, he was allegedly. And so I know people want to try to beat that drum because it makes their case better, but I think it's relevant from a standpoint, to me, actually, it's a lot more irrelevant than the gun charges. The gun charge worries me more. He's not going to sexually assault me when I come to get him. So I'm not as worried about that, but I think people use that because they know that's a trigger for people.
Yes.
Oh, you're this, then you deserve to die. And I think as a society, we got to get out of that habit. You're a Nazi. You're this. You're that. Now, if you're a convicted person, man, go to jail. Go to jail. Let them take care of you. If you get found raping somebody and you are guilty, bury you under the jail. But you are innocent until proven guilty in this country. You are. And as somebody that's supposed to be a libertarian that leans right, a constitutionalist is what I used to call myself. If that's what I am, then you got to always be that way. You can't. Just because somebody's accused of something, it doesn't mean that, if somebody's, like I said, if somebody's accused of shooting somebody with a gun, then yes, I'm going to be a little bit quicker with my trigger just in case. But if it's a sexual harassment or sexual molestation or a rape, they're not going to do that to me. So that's not my concern at that given point in time. If they used a machete, possibly.
However, if that was your daughter that came to you and said he touched her, what would you do?
Yeah, but the police officer does not have the authority.
That's a fatherless home, it looked like to me. So if there was a father there, he probably would have shot him before the cops.
But again, that's fine with me.
And then that would be a totally different story. Then you could possibly be talking self-defense, stand your ground.
Has to be as middle of the road as they can. Hey, you can have 5,000 charges. If you've never been found guilty, you are still innocent in the United States of America. And
although in 2020, that's questionable.
What did you say?
I said, although in 2020, that's questionable.
Which is why, and I'm against that. I don't think that I think that's the wrong, because it's the same. So we can go, and the only reason I didn't put this person's name in our titles is because I don't even know. I feel like they're suppressing his name or something, but the guy that was just murdered that was a Trump supporter, they're calling him the Trumper right now, to kind of hit on that. So this guy is a Trump supporter. Yeah, he's like I am, where he'll say, yeah, I'm a Trump supporter and like wave my American flag. So what? And then somebody comes up to him and goes, oh, we got a Trumper, bang, bang, and murdered this dude in outright cold blood. And they try to relate the stories between him and Kyle. That this is the same stuff.
Yeah, that's bullcrap.
That I talked about when this whole stuff, the whole Donald Trump is racist thing, ever since that narrative took, and the Nazis, people using the word Nazis. And I thought, we've been ingrained as kids. We all know, we all went through the same school system, that Nazis, we always wonder, well, if I knew a Nazi back then, I would have killed one. So then they know that, and then they play that into you. This person's a Nazi, this person's a Nazi, and you're thinking, well, I would kill a Nazi, right? If I knew somebody was a cold-blooded racist that hung black people, would I kill him? Yeah, I certainly wouldn't feel bad about killing them, right? So that's they've planted those seeds in my head, and then now they go, oh, see? There it is. That's the same person that you were thinking in your head, and that's what they're convincing people, and that is sick, man. That is just
it is very sick, and the same thing goes for victims too. As of right now, for all intents and purposes, Jacob Blake is a victim. I mean, he's still a victim. I mean, he was shot 7 times. I mean, as much as people don't want to believe that, Jacob Blake is a victim. In American society has a bad habit of going back and trying to dig up, character analyzations and trying to dig up people's past records in order to vilify.
Right?
Right, but this is happening for victims, and so if you committed a crime and you're on the chopping block, I think it's fair game. It's kind of unfair, but it's understandable. When you're a victim, to then say, oh well, he had this charge or he allegedly did this to this girl and he was shot, makes people feel better that he was shot. But is that what we really want to be doing as a society?
I'll tell you, I don't think
they try to villainize victims.
Well, here's the problem though, because putting all his past stuff aside, I don't believe he's a victim. I'm not sure.
Well, hold on. My main point, really quick, and I'll let you go, and that's fine. My main point in getting to that is looking at his past and everything. Yeah, he might not have been the best person in the world, but these are all things that none of those cops knew at all at the time of the incident.
Other than that,
no, that's not true though.
Yeah, they knew he had an open warrant.
No, that's the reason.
They knew he had a warrant, but they trying to bring up the you just brought up the girl allegedly being molested and things like that. They didn't know that stuff.
Well, they knew it was a sexual thing for the warrant. They knew he was on two.
They didn't know the details. They knew the business.
Now we don't know again, and it's interesting because I do try to analyze and I take what I do know and then I do try to fill in the gaps. And I know before I had said that I thought he was trying to get under the seat for something. So I was assuming they were going to find a gunner there. I had already seen the picture of him with the knife, and there were people that were there that said he had a knife and that they had said drop the knife. So I actually now tend to think that, and this is where it gets unfortunate, because I actually think he might have been trying to chuck the knife under there and then he was going to turn himself in, but then try to get away with not having the knife charge. I'm speculating because I'm still don't have, there's only, we talked about this before offline, there's only so many options you have. What was he wasn't fighting to get in his car to drive his kids home safely. Like they would have been in a high-speed police chase. That wasn't going to occur. Now, maybe they need to fix what rules you have about that. But if you start just saying, hey, you can get in your car with your kids and the cops can't do anything, you have a bunch of people involved in their kids that should not be involved in their kids. So
you'll have people showing up to rob stores with their kids waiting in the car. That'd be crazy.
Strap up, little Jimmy. They can't get us.
The kids are in the back innocent. They don't. I'm just gonna run in the store real quick. The whole time they're in there committing robbery. I agree with you there, man, and that's crazy. But again,
I just want to put this out because I don't even want to take whether he was, because I'm undecided on the level. There, he is on some level a victim, but I just think, golly Moses, like I really. when you start reaching for stuff, you're putting fear in somebody's heart. And here's the deal. And this is something that people need to be honest about. And I'm just going to say it here, and we're going to maybe get some backlash. We got 7 people watching.
We always get backlash.
A large segment of society that is scared of black people. Now, I know black people going, yeah, you're right. All them white people. It's like a lot of black people too. Okay. A lot of people in general, especially the higher income you get, right? People that make over 100. Why do you think, Triple X Shenation, or however the heck you say that rapper's name, right? He was driving out the hood in his Lamborghini, rode up on him, shot him, killed him, robbed him. Nipsey Hussle, murdered in his own hood, right? Depending on who you listen to about Biggie Smalls.
Pop Smoke, all of them, murdered by his best friend. I mean, it's awful. You don't hear this stuff in the rock and roll world. I mean, they die of drug overdoses and stuff like that, but it's not like their homeboy. It's not their homeboy shot them because they're jealous. Or this is ridiculous.
It's over and over. And the truth is, and Chris Rock said it in his album, he says, at 2 a.m, if I go in the city, I'm not looking over my shoulder for the media. Right? And it's like, how can Chris Rock say that and then now Chris Rock plays stupid? The reason jokes are funny is because we can relate to them, right? We go, man, oh shit, man, oh shit. I got robbed at gunpoint. Where did I get robbed at gunpoint? Out in District Heights. You ask anybody they want to walk around District Heights. That's not a race thing. Nobody wants to be around District Heights. Capitol Heights, Pioneer City, right? I don't want to live there. I'll live in Bowie. I'm not living in Pioneer City. So, which I lived right next to it. That's why I can, Mead Village, lived right on the other side of it. So it's things that it almost feels like, and Glenn, this is a great conversation to have you bring it up. And I know we only got a couple minutes left before we put it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it. Absolutely.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
We have 3 years ago, we would say, hey, look, over proportionally, blacks commit the violent crimes, over proportionally, they're arrested. And then we go, some of that has to do with the economic systems that have been racially driven. It's bad policies. It's lack of parenting that, again, I believe is policy driven. So there's these
exacerbated by the effects of systemic racism and fathers being taken out of them.
It's not that black people are inherently more evil than white. It's that due to these systemic issues, they have been
inherently more poor and inherently more downtrodden.
Right. And so these things have put them in this situation. Now I believe we've gone, oh, never mind. It's not all that stuff. Whereas with that stuff, you could actually start chipping away at it.
Yes.
Fix this a little bit, fix this a little bit, fix this a little bit, and start getting that to here. And instead, we've gone, oh, it's none of those things. It's just race. And then now it's like, why would you do that? And the only thing I can come up with is because they want class warfare. They want Marxism. These same people that were what was that called when they were before they were called on Antifa and they were with Bernie, they were called not Wall Street. They were called something. It wasn't Wall Street. It was something that something about Wall Street.
Yeah, it was something like it was.
Gosh dang it!
It was something that had to do with Wall Street, though.
Yeah, something about like broken Wall Street.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that situation, it's like now you just want broken systems so you can try to create this anarchy so that you can then later go, we need a savior. And then your savior is going to be AOC and the socialist government. That's what I say. And that's not going to help black people. Like, ask any of the Cubans who came over here. The lower middle class, which is still where they're at, end up getting crucified. I mean, it's super bad. So I just, it's very frustrating for me because I do want to see a land of equality. I want to see, rising tides with all ships. And I believe the best way to get there is through free markets. And I am very concerned, just like you've said before, in the 40s and 50s, when families were all together, the actual, the percentage of management and stuff was actually higher, business ownership higher than it is today. And I think we're heading in a wrong direction there. But I'll go ahead and give you the
Before
last
we
word.
get to the concluding statements, I got one last question for you guys on the Jacob Blake case. All right. So what do you say to the people that say, hey, if he would have just listened, he'd have been alive right now? Or he would have been not shot. He would not have been
shot because he's still alive. But yeah, so if he had just listened, I mean, that's probably an accurate statement.
Is that even a possibility? Like, did he do anything wrong? Elaborate.
I mean, here are the facts. And you know, yes, to answer your question, I would say, yeah, that's probably an accurate statement. Here's the facts. He tussled with 2 police officers. They didn't shoot him. After a physical altercation, even if these cops had some sort of an ego issue, they would have shot him. Especially if you would have, if he would have got the better end of them in the tussle, or if they would have lost the tussle, you know, your ego.
They did.
Yeah, which they did, and they still didn't shoot him. You know, they actually kind of let him walk. And who knows? Like, just like the police officers don't know what's going through the mind of a Jacob Blake doesn't know what's going through the mind of these officers, and you never do. Nobody never knows what's going through the mind of anybody. So that's oftentimes a defense that that police usually try to use in vilifying the victims when they have done wrong. So, but to answer your question on the surface, I would say, that's a very accurate statement. I mean, if he would have just listened, he probably wouldn't have been shot.
Now, I do.
It's not that easy. It's not that easy.
I'm going to say what.
I'm not saying he was justified in getting shot.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying he was justified in getting shot.
Well, I appreciate Glenn saying that. I'm going to say the other side, right? If a cow had balls, it'd be a bull, right? Like, you don't get the advantage of going, well, if this happened, okay, so that did happen.
Right.
He's not as good of a guy as the guy that just goes, hey, my bad. I got more respect for that guy. I got less respect for Jacob Blake. Now, still, does that mean that he should have been shot in the back 7 times? You know, you have to, both sides, and I'm glad Glenn said it the way he did, because most of the time people are terrified to say that, because then they think if you're white, you're just going to end the conversation, and you're going, yeah, but what if? And we all know that black buddy of ours who hasn't exactly followed the rules, or a white buddy of ours, and maybe the white guy got away with it and the black guy didn't, right? And so it just depends who you're around more, is who your example is going to be in your mind, right? So if you can assume it's race, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But once we get to that point, should it really be a death sentence? No, but once you start reaching the seat, you're going to build fear. And so my question is, if they used all their non-lethals, then I don't consider him a victim of anything but himself, because he really put himself in a horrible situation. I don't like that is going to be, paralyzed. And I hope that he learns from this. And I hope he comes out and goes, look, I fucked up and we got to do better so that cops don't shoot me in the back. I mean, look, I was doing the wrong thing, but I was trying to hide my knife. Like, I wish he would just come out and say whatever.
Yeah. And you never know. He might actually come out and say that. And it's funny that you mentioned that, Kenny. I never thought of that scenario, but you might actually be spot on with that. He probably was just trying to.
He had the knife, and you notice
it looked like he was trying to hide it, like walking back to the van.
Yeah, like he was trying to hide, because it looked like he kept trying to keep it tucked in his front.
He had it like right here.
Yeah.
And then he was trying to reach, and you're like, well, why would you reach on the seat? The only thing I can think of is maybe throwing it in there and then be like, what? And hoping they didn't get it. I mean.
Yeah. But you had asked a question really quick before, Kenny, before we get into the closing statements. You had kind of talked about basically self-accountability, amongst the black community. And I say these things all the time. And then, I wake up the next morning to a bunch of emails and backlash and things like that. And that's cool. It comes with the territory. But, there are certain people. It sounds good. You're a black person that feeds your ego. Like, yeah, white people are scared of us. There's a lot of people that are scared of black people. It's no excuse for police officers to be shooting or anything like that. And I don't think that's what anybody is saying.
Right.
But I know, and it's kind of hard to say. It's hard to speak on this, and it's hard to be kind of blunt about it. And I'm a very blunt person. So there's been time. I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I used to not be the best person in the world, and any time I was robbed, it was by a black person, or anytime I was attempted to be robbed, let's put it like that, right? It's we have to talk about that, and we have to be honest about it and real about it. Police officers want to be held accountable. civilians need to be held accountable. The black community needs to be held accountable. Like period. And not to say like, oh, well, you know, black people do better and you won't get shot. I think that's bullshit. And I think that's a dog whistle to something that we really have kind of gotten past. I think that's a dog whistle to a time period where, you know, obey or else kind of thing. I think it kind of gives that sort of ideology. And I don't want to say that because that's not where I am, obviously, at all. What I am saying, though, is, guys, laws are real. It doesn't make them right, but laws are real. A lot of laws are created not really out of libertarian rights or trying to protect people or anything like that, but a lot of them are created to give power to the opposition or to give power to a certain class of people, or to keep a certain class of people out. Almost like testing. Laws and testing kind of work synonymously. They work in the same fashion a lot of times. So this conversation is an interesting conversation, and I want an opportunity. We're gonna have to come back to this conversation because I want an opportunity to kind of formulate my thoughts holistically and talk about this, because again, Chris Rock can state at a point in time in his career, hey, when I'm in such and such hood at 2 o'clock in the morning, it ain't the media I'm worried about. But that's the truth. When if I'm, God forbid, if I'm walking down Capitol Heights or, you know, some of these other places that we've been to that are in and around, you know, DC, Baltimore area, you know, I'm looking out for niggas. It's like, no, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
but I'm looking, but at the same token, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I see a white guy that's kind of looking like he might be a dope fiend, heroin addict, might be trying to rob me, I'm looking out for that motherfucker too, because he is out of place. And what is he doing here? You know what I mean? So he's up to no good, in my opinion. So it's not a black and white thing.
Yep.
Right. It's not a black and white thing. It's an individual thing. But as a whole, the black community, and it's not, I'm glad Freddie kind of touched on it. It's not the black community's fault in its entirety why a lot of black people turn to stealing, robbing, and things like that, and just out of a need for these basic necessities. Right? Doesn't make it okay, doesn't make it justifiable, but it's certainly understandable. And when we understand that, like Kenny said, you know, we can start to chip away at these things. You know, we can look at the welfare program and say, okay, well, we're not going to continue to incentivize mothers to be single anymore. You know, we can look at the, you know, public housing in Section 8 and say, okay, well, we're not just going to easily hand out vouchers to these single mothers animore. You know, we're going to
look at appraisals. We can make sure that in these certain areas, the houses are, you know, appropriately appraised. I mean, I think there's so many things we could do when we start labeling things that it's race. It just kind of, it's like taking a basketball and flattening it and then going, well, how are we going to score? I mean, what are we going to do now?
But if I hold true and I hold the black community's feet to the fire and I say we got to do better, I'm a coon for that. Like I'm an Uncle Tom for that.
Shouldn't we all? It's almost like shouldn't
everybody has to do a little better, right?
Yeah, I mean,
like everybody has to do better, including the police. And I think right now is a pivotal point because finally the police are starting to be held accountable. And I do wish we had that special guest speaker on here today. He was a police officer for 13 years, because a lot of police officers' actions it perpetuates that whole code blue police unions kind of garbage that we're starting to trying to get away from.
I didn't say it today, but I was going to talk about how if we can get rid of the police unions, and I really don't want us to get rid of the idea that the legal side, because to me, every one of the false statements, I was going to bring this up earlier, that I've seen are all attorneys saying it. All the ones that end up being frivolous, that's attorneys posturing. I mean, I think Kyle's attorney's posturing right now. He got the same attorney as the dude that had the MAGA hat that was at the DC rally. They got paid because CNN lied about his story. The same dude. I mean, that kind of stuff just gets on my last nerve. I'm not saying
you know what's sad is because, and it's sad because, you know, as humanity, we have to give each other the benefit of the doubt, because lawyers, we have to think like this. I mean, attorneys, if they get caught lying, they're going to be disbarred, which of course is going to end their ability it's going to end their living and their ability to practice law. And then they could potentially go to prison for perjury. So we
Right,
have
but
to
all they
think.
do is find one lunatic to say whatever they want them to say, and then they're like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds like a good narrative. We'll go with that." A witness said, and it's like, hold on a second, and that goes back to the stuff we were talking about with Kamala Harris, where witnesses are sometimes the worst people. I mean, if you're promising them this and you're giving them that, as long as they say what you want them to say, I mean, and that's a longer story.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, Kamala has paid off witnesses to say this and to say that, and look, attorneys lie.
Lawyers do it too. Yeah,
attorneys certainly lie, but we just can't go off saying, off of an interview. Oh, I don't believe them. That's what attorneys do. We just can't do that because then it diminishes the integrity of our legal system. It diminishes. It's kind of like
I mean, again, we can touch on this another day, but I actually think I have no faith in lawyers. I think
me neither, but you don't say it. I don't either, but you don't say it.
They're trying to win their clients.
To me, you can walk in, you can kill me, Glenn, or try to, right?
Yeah.
I can hire the attorney or you can. It's like whichever one pays them, he's going to either try to get me in jail or try to keep me out of jail. And that's pretty wild. You know what I'm saying?
It is pretty wild, but everybody has the right to an attorney.
That is true.
We have to believe people until they are proven otherwise.
We have to.
You can be skeptical. If you don't believe them, it's fine, but you don't say it.
Well, there's a difference between not believing somebody's guilty and not believing somebody's innocent, or believing somebody's innocent and believing somebody's guilty. Those are all four different things. So, you can certainly go, hey, I don't believe this story, but do I think they should be convicted? No, there's not enough evidence, right? I can believe that Kyle was thinking, you know what, somebody mess with me, I'm getting me one. And he got him too. But if you can't prove that he did that, and actually it goes back to the racist things about the police, right? It's like you have to be able to prove he's racist if that's going to be your linchpin. You got to be able to prove that. You can't just tell me he's racist. Well, Glenn, you want to go ahead and start off with our conclusions today?
Yeah, man, I'll go ahead and lead us off, man. Thanks again, everybody, for being with us tonight. Again, happy Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. A lot of these cases that we're talking about right now in terms of Kyle Rittenhouse, Jacob Blake, always a lot of detail and a lot of gray area. Nothing is really black and white, no pun intended, because right now we're in a racially tense time. There's a racially high climate in America, and I think it gets ratings. I mean, let's be honest, it's very triggering. It gets ratings, and what we don't want to do as a society is get to the point to where racism or seeing somebody be victimized in a potential racist setting is almost becoming like a form of entertainment, because it gets high ratings and it's very triggering and it's kind of hard not to watch, right? Like when you see like police doing this nonsense, or when you see a white supremacist doing this, doing something that's racist or saying something that's racist, you watch it, and it's very triggering. So we don't want us to turn into a situation where it's almost entertaining. We should really be trying harder to not watch this stuff, to denounce this stuff. If we are watching this stuff, using it for educational purposes so that we don't repeat some of this garbage. But Rittenhouse, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be convicted at all. I honestly, the way that the prosecutors wrote up I went over it a few times, the way they wrote up his charges, they may even be dropped. I wouldn't even be surprised if some of these charges were dropped and didn't even waste any taxpayers' money. And that's unfortunate. Or maybe it's fortunate. Who knows? I mean, we don't know what was in this kid's heart. A part of me thinks he was just some punk kid that wants to be part of a militia and this and that. I know I've read some comments where people were speculating that he's a white supremacist and things. We just don't have the proof to say it. I'm sorry, guys, but you need proof. You're going to call somebody a racist, you got to prove it. You can't just call somebody a racist because they disagree with you, or because they don't wear the same kind of clothes you do, or because they don't look like how you think a upstanding citizen should look. Like, that's not how it works. It's just not. So, and then in terms of Jacob Blake, the cops, again, they have 4 non-lethal ways to deal with an adversary. Did they use any one of those 4? I did see one taser being shot during the tussle. But again, we got to stop trying to vilify victims. You know, Jacob Blake was shot 7 times. He shouldn't have been shot that many times. I mean, if I was a cop, I'm trying to make it home to my family and kids too, and I get it. And I may have shot him once if I felt the need. Twice, certainly no more than 3 times, but 7, that's just crazy. And there's still a lot of information that's going to come out, but we have to see, man. These cops have to be held accountable. We're going to obviously see what's going on with Jacob Blake. And I just think that there's a lot of nuance there. So it's going to be interesting developments. Feel free to comment, like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, guys. And, if you have any questions, like I said, shoot them in the comments, or you can send us an email, contra.dictions.us@gmail.com. Thanks for being with us again tonight. Go ahead and shoot it over to you, Kenny.
Yeah. So first of all, what I wanted to discuss tonight is that there has to come a point where everybody looks in the mirror and goes, what am I fighting for? Okay. I have a lot of respect for a lot of people who are with the Black Lives Matter movement. And, including, one or possibly 2 of my children. So the thing is that if we really want equality, we got to start with love. And, there's a lot of things that we have to understand, that the media is narrative driven. And I read a report about how people on the left refuse to watch any news on the right, whereas people on the right tend to watch news on the right and the left. And that really makes partisanship. And it's a terrible thing. For example, you had somebody that was 2 different people that were stabbed in the last week, stabbed to death in BLM rallies because they were Trump supporters. Another one was shot. Another guy, Trey Savage, was just an old guy jogging, and somebody bricked him, hit him with a brick. Cock knocked him out. Another person was burning down this guy's store, and when he came out with the fire extinguisher, they beat him until he couldn't move. We've got to do better as a society. Do our police have to do better? Absolutely. And do I want our police to address not having body cams? I do. Do I want them to eliminate police unions? I do. Do I want them to, be able to have these honest discussions where if they had non-lethal opportunities that we could see what those things are? Yeah, but we have to be able to have those conversations without turning to such mass violence. As I explained earlier, you can really go through, and for every horrible death that a black man takes at the hands of the police, you can name a white guy. It's that simple. And so it's bad. I almost said all lives matter, and I'm not an all lives matter or blue lives matter or this person. We do all matter. We do. And we can't matter until Black Lives Matter, and we can't matter until Trump supporters matter, and until Democrats matter, until midgets matter, until tall people. People have got to have more love for one another. If we have disagreements, we got to be able to talk to them. That's why we have this show. I'm so grateful for everybody that chimes in. I'd encourage you guys to reach out to us. If you got any questions, any topics that you want to discuss. If you're a police officer or something, you want to be on the show, you got questions, you want to discuss some things, let's do it. I'm going to close with actually reading up on what one person said. It says that society, somebody put a message out that said that society says to buy, smoke weed, it's no problem. But then when those people can't get jobs, that then all of a sudden they're going to end up on the short end of the sticks. And that's very true. We've got to be able to think deeper. And, I hadn't thought of that. And there's different ways that we've got to have open opportunities for one another. And that's all I got for you guys. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, of course, man. Hey, another great episode, Kenny and Glenn. You guys brought it again, like usual. Just to reiterate what you both said, I think we don't want anyone killed at the end of the day. I mean, Black lives do matter. And I think if you ask most people, they'll agree with that. I mean, I don't know the percentage. It might be 80%, 85%, but that's a lot. And it's a lot more than what it used to be. And anybody that says that, hey, look, we've tried it the peaceful way, now we're going to do it the war way, then you obviously haven't seen war, all right? Because when war comes to this country on these streets and it's your mom, your sister, your kid getting shot, you're going to change your tune real quick, all right? Nobody wants to see that. And if you say you want to see that, then you haven't seen it, all right? Trust me on that. And like Kenny said and Glenn said, everybody needs to change across the board, all right? It's an all of us thing. All right, not just freaking one way. All right, if you want real change, then everybody needs to change a little bit for the better. And again, we appreciate y'all tuning in. Be safe out there. Hey, tell your friends and family about the show, man. Let them know. Bring them out. Let them catch an episode. See if they like it. And until then, as always, man, love and respect. Be safe.